All right, and this morning on the AM News, 800 cedis is how much it costs to get a child to work on a cocoa farm at a low Chrome in the Western North region. The price slightly shoots upwards for children who are older. These are findings from a JoyNews investigative piece, Children in Cocoa Labor. Kwetinati reports this illegal trade is negotiated between the farmers and the family of victims of trafficking.
12 million. 50 million.
12 million.
Wait. 50 million. You only see the way Kakranokra, your fan 50 or 16. Hey, I want to cry your cock. One I'll bet you. Yama, the papa. The Bruce, or Monqua. Now, Yasandy. Now, it's come to obey you. My way, I want you to offer no. I feel you are going to Kakra. Only to offer.
Wow.
So she's saying that
800 right?
So those were excerpts of our latest hotline documentary, Children in Cocoa Labor. It will air on Monday, January 10 at 8:30 a.m. on the Super Morning Show and 8:30 p.m. on the Joy News channel. Interior Minister Ambrose Derry is taking a swipe at critics who say the 7th January Constitution Day is an idle holiday. He says it should be a day of reflection to consolidate the gains made by the people in embracing multi-party democracy. He said one aspect of the country's democratic ideals which needs to be developed and built on is tolerance. Mr. Derry has been speaking in an exclusive interview with JoyNews' Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam.
The Constitution requires that we are tolerant, and I'm looking forward to us doing the right thing, tolerating each other's views in Parliament, reflecting the nature of the people that we represent, Ghanaians, peace-loving people, and continue to build our democracy. That is what I look forward to. And to say that the President will continue to develop, we want development, we should learn to pay, contribute to it. The e-levy is being misunderstood, and I believe that if we can allow MTN, when I'm sending money to Nandom, I pay 5,050, I send 5,050 and I pay another 50 and I get nothing. And we want you to pay to the state and get better rules and employment for our youth. I'm calling on all concerned to reconsider and support us constructively moving forward to get the necessary resources to build Ghana and move towards a Ghana beyond aid. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The Interior Minister also states that the current happenings in Parliament is a concern for all, and he hopes the MPs will pass the e-levy when sitting resumes this month.
What is happening in Parliament now, in the 8th Parliament of the Fourth Republic, is a matter of concern. I say so, and I want to put it in context. This is the 8th Parliament, and probably when the President decided, and we went to Parliament to declare 7th January Constitutional Day, some people thought it was an idle holiday. It is not an idle holiday. We want people to wake up from complacency, that we think that we have arrived as a multi-party democracy. Yes, within the region we are a shining example, but I believe that the Constitutional Day should give us an opportunity to reflect and improve and consolidate. And one aspect of our democratic attitude that we must develop and build on is tolerance. Tolerance of different views. And that's what we need to build on.
The Nchi Magistrate Court, presided over by His Worship Eric Ba Boateng, has remanded into police custody the couple who beat their 4-year-old daughter to death for bedwetting. The Nchi District Police arrested the couple on Thursday. According to the police, Francisca Etute, who was made to sit on hot water, also broke her arm due to the beating. The suspects are said to have caned the deceased till she fell unconscious. Speaking with JoyNews, the Nchi Police Divisional Commander ACP Henry Bacho said the couple subsequently rushed their daughter to their wing community clinic. However, Francisca died while receiving treatment.
Police had information that the couple named Salome Etute and Daniel Efa, they beat their 4-year daughter and she fell unconscious. And then she was rushed to the Aowi Community Clinic at New York Castle. While she was taking treatment, she passed on. But the couple decided to go and hide the body in their room, covered with ajampo leaves, expecting to bury the child in the night. So when we had the information, we went there and it was true. So we picked them together with the body to Inchi. The body is deposited at a government hospital in Inchi here, and the husband and the wife are in our custody for investigation. We heard from the suspects was that the deceased girl used to urinate in the night, and they tried to punish her by using hot water. She sat on hot water. Then that one doesn't serve them right, and they whipped her and broke her arm, and then she was rushed, and she fell unconscious. She was rushed to the hospital, our Wing Community Hospital at New York, where she died.
Former Bono East Regional Minister Kofi Amakwehene says the new region, since its creation, has attracted various forms of development. He notes that aside tackling some key infrastructural needs of the people, the new region has also contributed to bringing governance closer to the people. There's more in the following report by Anas Sabit.
In the year 2018, traditional authorities in the eastern part of the Den Brong Ahafo region embarked on a journey with a proposal for the creation of a new region to be named the Bono East Region. This attempt received a massive endorsement, with all 19 paramountcies in the area throwing their weight behind the move. In December that same year, a referendum was held and history was made, with 99.5% of the electors who turned out to vote voting yes. Today, authorities in the Techiman traditional area, with support from the board of directors of Encom Hotel Limited, held an awards program to celebrate key members of the region whose tireless efforts led to the birth of the Bono East region. Regional Minister Kwesi Adujan called for unity in order to realize the goals for which the new region was created.
I think it's an important milestone, and it's a way of appreciation. So it's in order. We now have the region. We now have to work hard with one accord, in unity, and make sure that the region that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has given to us will be able to realize the goals, the objectives, and then make the citizenry understand their roles, their responsibilities and duties, and contribute towards the building of the region and Ghana as a whole.
Former Member of Parliament for Atiwa Mantin constituency and first Bono East Regional Minister Kofi Amakwehene, who was integral in the creation of the new region, noted that the new region has so far attracted development to the area.
It was worth creating the region. One, that I would say is that by the creation of this region, we could count of 5,000 kilometers of road within my few months in the office and from the government. And I was the first regional minister, and honestly, I went to 13 new places that they told me that no minister has ever been here. So I believe that it brought about proximity to the grassroots. We had opportunity to identify the problems.
Ibrahim Baba Bukari is one of a few youth of the area who were honored for their various contributions towards the creation of the region. He charged the youth of the area to be supportive of their various communities in order to help achieve the purpose for which the region was created.
Sa abasboye omudamani meka security nti omudi agumu sei no afede nyame pa ebehye nemu mejina akwanya we so.
This recognition is a moral booster that will push us to do more. So my advice to the youth is to ensure that they contribute towards the development of their various communities with the little they have, and I'm hopeful that one day they will also be recognized for their efforts. Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Tichiman.
At least 500 people at Tenzug in the Talented district of the Upper East region have received free medical screening, health advice and treatment for various conditions by Little Feet Foundation, an NGO working to promote the well-being of children. The children in the community were also giving mentorship sessions, while adolescents were taken through reproductive health talk sessions as part of a community medical outreach during the Christmas period. Here's a report by correspondent Albert Sori.
The Christmas Community Health Outreach by Little Feet Foundation was the fourth since the organization came to existence 6 years ago. Little Feet Foundation is a not-for-profit organization working to promote the well-being of children in the Upper East region. Within the 6 years of their existence, the organization has worked in the areas of education by providing shoes and education materials for underprivileged children in order to motivate them to stay in school. And every year since the year 2018, Little Feet Foundation has taken a medical outreach to underprivileged communities in the Upper East region. This year's outreach was taken to the Tenzuk community in the Talented district, where at least 500 people were screened for various health conditions and given medication or health advice where necessary. Dr. Delasi Kwame is the lead doctor for Little Feet Foundation.
We started off with a screening for the elderly folk. We found out that some of them were actually hypertensive. We also spoke to some of the young ladies about safe sex practices and the use of contraceptives, for example. We distributed folic acid to women in the reproductive ages. We conducted a deworming exercise for children 2 years and above. We're talking about health interventions. We're liaising with the CHIPS compound medical or health professionals to be able to do follow-ups as to how we can help them with certain conditions that can be managed here.
The children of the Tenzuk community were also given mentorship sessions and had some fun doing paintings on their faces, whilst the adolescents were engaged in reproductive health talk sessions. Some second-hand clothes were also donated to the poor as part of the outreach. Sally Azotiyene is the founder of Little Feet Foundation.
Last year we worked on the malnutrition eradication project, which was sponsored by the Embassy of Switzerland to Ghana, Togo and Benin. So this year has been a bit different because we had worked in committees. We worked in the educational committee where we came to inculcate the spirit of reading in the children, art and other educational fun activities. Then the issue of health, we did a few health education on anemia, on menstrual hygiene, or pregnancy, a lot of things we did.
The chief of Tenzuk, Bawa Zuri, said the outreach by Little Feet Foundation was helpful to his people.
We are all very happy. You know, so people like this, they have blood pressure, don't go to hospital. Today that two of them they are here, they check their blood and everything. It's very, very nice.
Little Feet Foundation is hopeful they can do more for communities like Tenzuk in the year 2022.
BEC results are bad, and that is because students do not read anymore. So our our main project is the Little Feet Community Library Project. We are looking at gathering books from people. If you are out there, you have books you don't use anymore, whether textbooks, storybooks, just get them to us. We bring them to the various communities and establish libraries there to inculcate the spirit of reading in children. So that is actually our main project for the year 2022.
For Joy News, Albert Sori, Tingzuk, Talensi District.
And that'll be it for the AM News. We'll be getting into the newspapers in a bit, so stay tuned in. All right, so time now for the news review on the AM show, and I've been joined by Manuel Coranting. Hello, Manuel.
Hi, Balai. That's Balai.
This is the first time I'm actually doing the news review with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I not lucky?
Oh, he's a great guy, Manuel Coranting, one of our young reporters. He's been doing quite well for himself.
Yes. I mean, if we have the legendary Israelite, sitting at spitting distance from you. I mean, you can.
Okay, let's get into the.
You should accept the accolades. I mean, you work for the accolades. You should
accept it. So let's get into the news.
I'll be constitutional day to you, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's start from the Ghanaian Times, the most authoritative newspaper. The banner headline here: WASSCE exams more practices. 11 teachers land in trouble on page 17. With a picture of the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Kwesi Opoku Amankwa, and it's reporting that the GS has interdicted them pending appointment termination. On page 7, there's a really sad story. 2 drowned in Black Volta after fire guts the boat. And, of course, Ghana marks 29th Constitutional Day today. And yesterday, in fact, the Anglican bishops, held a special mass at the Jubilee House with the president, and they are asking him to remain focused on the mandate given him by Ghanaians.
Okay.
And that's what the Ghanaian Times front page is reporting. The back page, they'll build dam for community, Doninga chief to government, and deadline for merger of SNIT NIA cards extended with the picture of the Director General of SNIT, Dr. John Ofori Tinkorine.
Okay, so I'm interested in what it is that the 11 teachers have done for which they're facing the eviction. We'll come to that. Let me also run through the front page of the Daily Graphic. So, building stronger economy, let's pray for our leaders. Reverend Dr. Makwe appeals to nation. And Constitution Day worth celebrating, that's Ofosu Ampofo, who's the national chairman of the National Democratic Congress. And the public wants more education on Constitution Day. And then on the back page, Tamale Interchange to be inaugurated March. And he has a photo of some work being done on the interchange. And couple arrested over daughter's death, which was captured in the news this morning. So these are some of the stories making the front page. Let's get into
the
Ghanaian Times.
The Ghanaian Times. So let me take you to page 17. And talk about that story of the 11 teachers being interdicted by the GES. It's written by Norman Cooper and reads, the Ghana Education Service has interdicted 11 teachers pending the termination of their appointment for taking part in various acts of examination or practices during the Basic Education Certificate Examination and West African Senior School Certificate Examination. Now, the Deputy Director General of the GES, Mr. Anthony Boateng, said that, quote, management of the GES refers to a report from WAEC on alleged exams malpractice by some officers of the service during the WASSCE and BEC 2020. So this is 2020, not 2021.
Oh, okay.
2020. And goes on to say the Greater Accra region tops the list with 5, followed by Ashanti region with 4, while OT and Bono East region shared 1 teacher each. He said, however, that the teachers were invited to appear before a committee at the GS headquarters, Accra, for hearing over the allegations of their engagement in the exam malpractice. And it goes on to quote relevant portions of the GES Code of Conduct for staff members and all of that.
So this one has 11 teachers being in trouble, but there's this general perception that indeed a lot more teachers tend to get involved in examination practices because they want to see their students do well. And apparently if the students do well, it looks good on them. And then they are seen to be, the stars, the teachers who are doing excellently well.
But I mean, this is one of the main recommendations from the Africa Education Watch, report on a review of the 2020 examinations and then the 2021 examinations, that fish out these people and don't just punish them in the quiet. Let people know that we are actually going after them and we are punishing them, so that it sort of renews the confidence that people have in the entire examination that you are running.
As for the confidence, I think it was going to take a whole lot more because people have come to feel that it's easy to pass these exams as long as you can engage in some more practice on the other, especially when you can do that with a collusion of teachers. And then there's this issue of the sale of examination questions and all of that's a whole...
And that's why, in fact, the education minister sometime last year said that they were working on introducing serialization of the questions so that if peradventure, I know it never will happen, it's in the same exam. The same exam hall with me, you're answering pretty much the same questions, but they are arranged in a really varied, way, so that your number one, the answer could be A, but mine, number one, the answer would be D. And so I can't ask you a question about number one or a question about number two. And that essentially would, at least at the level of the exams hall, where you have people sort of collaborating, doing group work with the assistance of invigilators and teachers and all of that, you're going to cut down on that. I can imagine
too that would require some level of logistics to pull that off, because what tends to happen is if you have the same questions and the same order of questions, then it's a lot easier. You just hand it over and then they're marked that way. But if they're in different, the questions don't follow a particular sequence, and then it means you have to, after the exam, know which questions are going to, Let's see which other stories are there.
And of course, I'm going to take you to this particular story from the Jubilee House from yesterday. Now, the Anglican bishops held a special mass with the president at the Jubilee House. Now, a Christian service was held. It's in the center spread of the Ghanaian Times. A Christian service was held at the Jubilee House in Accra yesterday to begin the second year of President Akufo-Addo's 4-year term in office. A number of Anglican clergymen led by the Anglican Archbishop of the Internal Province of Ghana and Bishop of Asante Mampong, the Most Reverend Dr. Cyril Ben Smith, held a service and prayed for God's blessings and guidance for the president and his government. They urged the president not to be distracted, but remain focused on the mandate given him by the Ghanaian people to govern the nation. And there's a quote here that says that regardless of the failures, the challenges of the times, we must be willing to try again, trusting in God's word, and that is the way we should view things. So these were the words of the Most Reverend Dr. Cyril Ben Smith as he led that particular sermon. But I mean, on the back of all of this, and it's good to pray, of course, for good health and strength for the president, but on the back of all of this, it's been, well, cumulatively 5 years, but in a second term, today should be exactly a year since he was sworn in. Yeah. And I mean, there's the manifesto that he, presented to Ghanaians, and then there's a reality that we've seen in the past 1 year. And the question that is begging our minds is, well, are you seeing or are you getting what you were promised, or are you getting a wind of a direction that, okay, well, we are not there yet, but we are on a path, of course, that we are actually going there. And so, I mean, you should ask yourself at home. I mean, it's a holiday. A lot of you are at home and you're watching. And ask yourself, I mean, as I say, what would you like to see government do a bit more or a bit less?
So the question we are asking the viewers this morning is, what do you make of the first year of the second coming of President Akufo-Addo? So that's a question we are asking the people. We've posted it on social media, and we're going to get
interesting to hear.
a few of the reactions.
Interesting to hear. And from a journalist point of view, last year was supposed to be what year of roads. Well, the year before that, 2020 was actually supposed to be the year of roads.
Really, this year has been declared another year of roads.
And turns out, in fact, last year alone, I covered so many demonstrations over roads.
Yeah.
Poor roads, better put, And so from a journalist point of view, well, the roads that were promised, perhaps they're being fixed in other areas, but at least from where I sit and from the stories, I just see people agitated.
The roads hasn't come your way.
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
I would also, I've seen some roads being resurfaced.
Okay.
So I've seen a number of roads being resurfaced.
Resurfaced.
So that's more like rehabilitation of the roads.
Yeah.
But seeing new roads being constructed, well, there's some work. Okay, a few places.
Yes.
I think that some work is beginning. Yeah. But yes, I'm not seeing that much of new roads being done.
And a lot of the road contracts, if like projects, have actually been abandoned. And we've had the roads ministry say, in fact, give ultimatum that the contractor should get back on site or risk their contracts being and all of that.
I'm sure if you ask Gavin, they'll say that we're waiting for the e-levy. Funds from the e-levy. Let's get on to the Daily Graphic. Let's see the other stories. So building stronger economy. Let's pray for our leaders. Reverend Dr. Markwe appeals to nation. Says the General Overseer of the Living Streams International, Reverend Dr. Ebenezer Markwe, has called on Ghanaians to rise up and pray for the leadership of the country. He said, with challenging times still biting from the impact of the coronavirus disease, the pandemic, general rising cost of living, and the government's desire to raise resources from taxes to provide amenities for its citizens, God remained a critical source of hope and intervention to keep things on course. So that's Reverend Markwe saying that. And let's get into, also on page 3, the story continues. Then we go to, let's bring you some African stories. Nigeria labels bandit gangs terrorists. Lockdowns no longer tool to contain COVID-19. Okay, that's interesting. So Africa's top public health officials said that severe lockdowns were no longer the best way to contain COVID-19, praising South Africa for adopting that approach when responding to its latest infection wave driven by the Omicron variant. We are very encouraged with what we saw in South Africa during this period where they look at the data in terms of severity of infections. John Inkengasong, director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC, told a news conference. Okay, that's interesting. But in China, no, they are locking down. All it takes is for a few cases. Sometimes, in fact, asymptomatic cases. That's it. They're locking down the whole city of.
I mean, they know the impact that it's had on them in the past, and so. I want to bring you 2 quick stories.
Okay.
I don't know, both of them not so jolly stories. On page 26 of the Ghanaian Times, fuel prices to go up. That's a prediction by the Institute of Energy Security. And it comes with a picture of Fritz Moses and says prices of petrol and diesel are likely to rise by some 18 pesos per litre this week. The Institute for Energy Security has projected. Fritz Moses, who's a research analyst at the IES, told the Ghana News Agency that the projection stemmed from the continuous rise in crude prices on the international market. He said the increment in global prices was due to the rise in demand for petroleum products during the festive period, among other factors. Here's a quote for you. Some OMCs have already made some upward adjustments, and looking at the global trend, we expect other OMCs to increase their prices this week. And so, is that good news for you, Raleigh?
It's not good news for anybody. Why would that be good news? Why would that be good news? Because you have to pay a bit more. And you know how the increase in price of fuel affects virtually everything. So It's not good news.
And even more terrible news for the cocoa industry is that they are called the loading boys, quote unquote. They are the cocoa haulers. Okay. So they carry the bags of cocoa from the goods trucks into the containers for export and so on. From Godfred Blay Giba, all the way in Tema, says that carriers of cocoa across warehouses in the country on Wednesday embarked on an indefinite industrial action to demand more pay for their services. They want the cocoa board to increase the wage for carrying a bag of cocoa from 65 pesos per bag to 1 Ghana cedi. Now, during a visit yesterday to the cocoa shed of Cocoa Board in Tema, trucks numbering about 50 fully loaded with bags of cocoa were seen parked in the yard. Now, the usually busy spectacle of trucks moving in and out of the yard was absent. One of the leaders of the striking workers, Gordon Okanse, said there had not been any increase in their wages for close to 5 years, and all efforts to get management to do something about their meager wages had fallen on deaf ears, so they decided to embark on the industrial action. A quick update for you, though. Yeah. Yesterday, they had a meeting with Cocoa Board, and Cocoa Board said, the proposal at the meeting was a 20 pesos increment from their 60 to 65 pesos to somewhere around 82, 85.
So at least the Cocoa Board is making some overtures. I would have thought that 1 cedi shouldn't really make a difference if it hasn't been changed for 5 years. From 65 to 1 cedi, it's not that much.
So one has to load how many bags? 100 bags to make 100 cedis a day. Load 50 bags to make. With their 65 pesos, 100 bags to make 65 cedis a day.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, but the other question I'm asking is, why are we loading? Having people load. Why can't we mechanize it? Because if we're mechanizing, it's going to be a lot faster, and it's going to be cheaper, I would want to believe.
Well, cheaper eventually, and more unemployed people, on the streets with no gainful employment.
I understand, but some of these jobs would eventually have to be scrapped. It may take maybe 5, 10 more, but it still has to go at some point.
My feeling is that, if you are not creating any more avenues for people to get into employment,
then we shouldn't scrap.
Don't scrap it. That's my thinking. Don't scrap it, because they are getting 65 pesos per bag is woefully inadequate, leading them to strike.
But you see, if you take out the sentiments all of that, if you were a private company, would you want people to be loading bags of cocoa? I'm not sure a private company wanted to do that. But government won't want to do that or a government company, a company owned by government wouldn't want to do that, because if it does that, it means people are going to lose jobs, and that is no good on the government. Let's get to some more stories in the Daily Graphic. President Biden slams Trump over Capitol attack and Florona, COVID-19 and influenza co-infections. 7 Palestinians killed in truck and minibus crash. Britain warns Russia over Ukraine. And we go to page 11. Gender, learn trade to sustain your future. There's a Queen Mother saying that. Edu Chum, the education minister, supports widowers. Constitution Day worth celebrating. That's the story from Fosu Ampofu on the front page. It says the national chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Samuel Fosu Ampofu, has commended Ghanaians for helping to sustain the 1992 Constitution for 30 years. It is a feat worth celebrating. We must pat ourselves on the back for sustaining this Constitution thus far, he said. He gave the commendation in an interview with the Daily Graphic on the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution and the birth of the Fourth Republic. So that's the National Chairman of the NDC saying that. And public wants more education on Constitution Day. So the National Commission on Civic Education has been called upon to step up its duties on sensitizing the public to the importance of the Constitution Day, which is a public holiday. the Constitution Day, which is January 7 every year, and which has since 2019 been observed as a national holiday to commemorate the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution, which set the nation on the path to constitutional rule. However, many ordinary Ghanaians, the Daily Graphic interviewed, have no knowledge about the day and only regard it as one of the many holidays the country enjoys. Those who have an idea about the significance of the day urge the NCCE to live up to its responsibility of educating Ghanaians on such an important civic event, lest its importance got lost on the next generation. It's a good call, but I'm sure the NCCE too say they've been suffering with budgetary allocations
and logistics and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, casual conversations with people I meet on the road in public transport and all of that. You talk about Constitution Day. So, Akufo-Addo, this was already 5 years on Jokoya anniversary. So, the understanding, I mean, that some people have is that it's an anniversary celebration for the president because, of course, he was sworn in on 7th January. Then, if we're having a holiday on 7th January, it incidentally would be his anniversary celebration. But that's not it, of course, just like the Daily Graphic said, it's a celebration of the latest constitutional dispensation.
And the NCC has issued a statement on Constitution Day, and we'll be sharing that with our viewers in a bit or later on the show. And we'll be talking more about the Constitution and calls for the Constitution to be either reviewed, overhauled, or just scrapped entirely. So we'll get into that conversation. But the NCC essentially is saying that we should, there are things we need to do to make the people, the populace, feel that they are part of this country. Otherwise, they will disengage, and the Constitution won't mean much to them. So it's a conversation worth having. On the center spread of the Daily Graphic Statistical Service undertakes household income survey, and Anglican Church converge on Jubilee House, praise for President's government. 370 officers graduate from Fire Academy. In politics, NDC's position on benchmark value on healthy for nation building. That's Dr. John Kuma, the Deputy Minister of Finance. Peace Council must resolve on pass in Parliament. That's Stranek Africa saying that. And no date for internal elections yet in the MPP. President receives NSMQ winners at Jubilee House. That's another thing that happened yesterday. Government to demolish illegal structures along road reservations. That's Amakwata, the roads minister, warning or saying that. And case against Ato Forcing not politically motivated. That's the AG saying that. And then my wife's pregnancy was intact. Husband of kidnapped woman tells courts. And this was a story that was reported on quite heavily on Joy, Joy from yesterday. The police are heavily relying on medical experts who have examined her. So the man believes that maintains that I saw my wife who was pregnant. But the police are also saying, well, the doctors are saying this woman has never been.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like she was ever pregnant. Okay.
I mean, we can't go without talking about is it controversial or infamous SIM registration or re-registration?
Oh, yeah.
Exercise.
Well, yesterday we had a conversation about it, and let's do that at the end. Okay. Let's quickly just wrap up. Police grab sodomy suspects at Tase Manso. Kidnapping, mining, road construction, major happenings in 2021 in the Western region. And NIA suspends card replacement at headquarters. Yeah. So that's something that I hinted yesterday on the AM show. Because someone called and said he had been told that he had to come, or he was in Elembele. He was told that for the replacement of the card, he had to come all the way to Accra to do that. And I thought it was unreasonable. Yeah. So I said I was going to follow up. I checked with Abdul Ganiyu, and he indicated that, yes, that's actually the case. And it's because they are yet to set up or prepare the district and regional offices are not yet in a position to do the replacement of the cards. And that's why they're saying that if you need to, they said they'll get there eventually. Yeah. But if you need to, then you have to come to Accra. And then he indicated that, but even that, we're suspending it. And
what becomes of the people who want to replace?
You'd have to wait. They're suspended temporarily, so it has to be that. So the National Identification Authority has temporarily suspended car replacement services at the head office. The suspension, which began last Wednesday, will last till January 17.
Okay, just about a week.
Yeah, just about a week. And, then one other story, certified registered and nurses returned to work. So yesterday, on the AM show, they hinted that they were going to return to work, and true to it, they've issued a statement to that effect. All right, let's quickly look at the daily guide to Anglican Bishops Pray for Nana government, Takrady fake kidnap case. I saw my wife pregnant. Police rescue Jamaican artist. Fix the country chased out of Saglemi. Couple kills daughter 4. That's a very, very sad story. And there's a cartoon here. AFCON expectations. Matra Makwe. That's it features some gentleman here looking like the Black Stars coach Milovan. And
then this one looking like Ket
Okreku says, Milo what bone? What's that? Milo bone. And then so we see this person who's supposed to be the coach.
BBC.
Ah, BBC. Okay, now I get it. Oh. This one. Milo.
Oh, I could see how the cartoonist.
Okay, all right. So yeah, that's it for the daily guide. But the issue about the SIM registration and the yesterday we devoted some time to that, and yes, we're seeing lots of people who are having to crowd at service centers. We see the telcos wanting to do something about it by saying that they're trying to decentralize it, so that it's just not their customer service centers, but they're having other agents who can do that. But the question many people have been asking is, and we asked this on the show yesterday, is that the best way to go about it? Can't we find, a much easier, much more convenient way of doing this? Can it be done faster? Now, it's also emerging that it now turns out that people's data, biometric data, is being collected and stored by other parties apart from the NIA, which is the only institution mandated to be collecting such events and keeping such information. So this is a conversation that needs to continue, and we probably should be talking a lot more about that, because I won't be comfortable if my biometrics is being handed over to a third party. The fact that it's being collected in the first place is concerning, because then you're wondering how well is it being kept by the NI. But then if you have another party altogether doing that, then it presents, it's quite worrying. And Selon Brandt here, he's written extensively on that on Facebook, and he's suggesting that our data may not be safe.
Yeah. Of course, you went on our substantive matter of data, protection and all of that. I mean, that's a developing conversation, because we're learning that the platform that's being used to collect this data is developed by a technical partner,
Kelny
GVG, of the NIA, and so that's what. But that platform in itself, even beyond all the issues of data protection and all of that, is slow and it's quite problematic. Now, at all the telco outlets that I visited yesterday, for instance, the response was same. That's the network is slow, the network is down, the network is jammed, all of that. And you had people who had started queuing as early as 5 a.m. and were there up until 2 p.m. and were yet to even move one spot ahead of where they started from. And so it's been really problematic. The silver lining, however, is that the telecoms chamber, its CEO, Dr. Ken Ashibe, says that they're now exploring other avenues, possibly dispatching officers to homes, to offices, to schools, etc., to try and collect the data. I mean, places that you have a congregation of people, so that you can at one go or one sitting take.
So it makes it
number,
easier. It's more convenient.
Exactly.
Because if you're coming to the people's offices, they can be waiting in the offices and then go out. It's just out there. You just go and they can come back to work.
So we'll see how that goes. And they say they're working on updates of the platform. So today, for instance, we're supposed to have an update. Only today is a holiday. We don't know if the telcos are working.
But with all the questions that are coming up about the data protection and the fact that the data being collected, the biometrics and all that is going to be handed over to a third party other than the NIA, I won't be surprised if somebody goes to court and challenges it and seeks to stop the process. Anyway, it's a good thing that we're trying to re-register the SIM card so that we can bring some, order and discipline. And so that they say one of the things they're looking at is curbing fraud, because people use these phone numbers, they call people and you can't tell, you just throw the SIMs away. But if the SIM cards away, but if we're able to identify and say that this person owns this number and it's connected to your Ghana card, it's a lot more difficult for you to use it for crime. Okay, so
we just don't hope. We just don't hope that people go back. Because yesterday, for instance, a gentleman told me that, what is all of this? I have left my work. This is the third straight day. I can't do this again. In fact, they should block my number. I'll go and do space to space. And I thought that's an interesting one. But we hope that we don't return to the days of space to space. Never mind, they would mean that the what do you call them? The cocoa haulers, if they lose their jobs, they can't do space.
One other thing that probably may be happening is people may resort to using WhatsApp calls. Or finding other means.
Yes. I don't need a specific data or like mobile phone network. If I have internet connection, I can do WhatsApp call. I can do, I can call online. But I think, let's just simplify the process. Let's make it less tedious than it already is and get more people, because beyond the convenience in calling people and all of that, is also has security implications for you, for me, for everybody.
You come to think about it, you can take out the SIM
and
from
still
your
do
card right now and still do WhatsApp calls. Okay, thank you very much, Manuel, for joining me for the news review. And we still have a lot more coming up on the show. As I indicated, we have sports, and we'll be doing a bit more on sports. It has to do with the AFCON tournament, which is kicking off in Cameroon this weekend. Muftar Abdullahi will be joining me shortly for that. Thank you. And stay tuned in. We'll be back in a bit. Right, so this is the AM show, and I'm Israelite. Happy Constitution Day to you. This year's commemoration comes at a time of increasing calls for a review of the 1992 Constitution, and it's only fair that we give you, our viewers, an opportunity to tell us where you stand on the issue. So, should the fourth Republican Constitution be overhauled, reviewed, or be completely done away with? And we're putting that question to you on Facebook. So you get to our Facebook page and you get to see that question. We have a number of comments already coming in, and we'll be sharing some of those comments with you. So there you have it. We have some of the comments. Reviewing the Constitution. So that's Yao saying that reviewing the Constitution won't change anything if our leaders want to bend the provisions of the law. They can still do so. We just need a leader to respect our Constitution and not to abuse it. So yes, but the National Commission for Civic Education has put out a statement on Constitution Day, and I'll be sharing that with you. So there you have it on your screen. It says Constitution Reform, the next step to participatory democracy and sovereignty. So today 7th of January, dubbed Constitution Day, since its inception in 2019, has been set aside to commemorate the birth of the 1992 Constitution, which ushered in the Fourth Republic. Indeed, having uninterrupted constitutional rule for 29 years is a milestone that we must celebrate as Ghanaians, recalling our checkered political history and the overthrow of 3 previous Republican constitutions which were truncated by military interventions. The National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE, joins the people of Ghana to celebrate the 4th Republican 1992 Constitution and encourages the study of our fundamental law as a guide to civic rights and responsibilities. The day, aside acknowledging Ghana's longest-serving constitution, also ensures that the tenets of democracy, liberty, democratic governance, rule of law, accountability, constitutionalism are upheld. The Fourth Republic has fostered peace, democracy, and prosperity. Consequently, on this day, the NCCE reminds Ghanaians of our collective commitment to uphold and defend the 1992 Constitution against interference and interruptions. As Article 3.4 of the 1992 Constitution reminds us, every citizen of Ghana has a duty to defend the Constitution, must stand in defense against any person, group, or issue that threatens the very fabric of our democracy, and must reject oppressors' rule in any form or anything that seeks to disturb the peace and stability we enjoy. The NCCE, however, notes that despite these gains, strengthening our democracy by reforming and improving our constitutional infrastructure should once again be made a national priority. This will help tackle constitutional deficits and aspects of the 1992 Constitution that seemingly breed apathy from the public, disengages the public in major aspects of governance at the grassroots and national levels, further deepens marginalization, promotes excessive powers of the executive, and festers the cause of corruption. Our constitutional framework is anchored on the cardinal pillars of freedom, justice, probity, and accountability, liberty, equality of opportunity, and prosperity. The dynamism of these principles must empower Ghanaians, and our constitution must be responsive to the evolving needs of its citizenry. This will promote a sense of belonging and ensure the collective ownership and participation of every citizen from the grassroots to the national level in our democratic journey. The NCCE wishes all Ghanaians a happy Constitution Day. Long live Ghana. And so that's the statement coming from the National Commission for Civic Education. Joining us on Zoom right now is Oliver Baka-Vomo, who is with the Fix the Country movement. Good morning to you, and a Happy New Year to you, Oliver. Hello, Oliver.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Good morning to you. And
good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Okay. So
I like your background. You're looking a bit more lively today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so my producers worked that out. So, yes, I just read the statement from the National Commission for Civic Education, and it very much just goes to support the calls for review of the Constitution, because they're believing that that's how we can ensure that the citizens become a lot more engaged. I want to take your initial thoughts on that statement.
Perhaps they have failed to listen to the president when he said he doesn't believe there's any need to touch on the Constitution. But you know, there's somebody who was telling me that when you have been saying something consistently, which is the truth, in fact, that there's a point where people take you for that you're absolutely crazy, and I feel like that's the reaction we got when we started talking about the need for a new Constitution. Eventually, they start admitting it as obviously, as always having been obvious, and that you aren't saying anything new. But I want Ghanaians to be watchful of these statements like this that mean nothing, that are produced on days like this and we read them on television and then we go off. They have been doing this trick since 1993, you know, and they haven't changed their modus operandi. They create a sense of hope that some grand reform is imminent in the next few days, and that we also believe in the idea, and then we wait it out so Ghanaians forget, and then it's been the play and it's part of the practice. If we want real action, we really want.
No, but Oliver,
yes.
Oliver, you're saying that this is something they just sell to us and they just abandon it. But we know that there were, significant work that was done on reviewing the Constitution.
So, I was part of that Constitution review process, and I understand that a lot of times, because we are too distracted by shiny processes, we do not interrogate them enough. And I say this because when that process was put in place, it came again under a part of the Constitution as a commission of inquiry powers that was used to set it up. What it meant in essence was that whatever report that was produced was only going to be an advice to the president, an advice he could refuse to take on board or not. So the manner in which it is even set up tells you that there's no real commitment that whatever the product of that process is would lead to anything substantial and tangible. And the history has shown us that that's exactly what happened. So we have to be very mindful and be watchful of statecraft and how these things are orchestrated, because we can go around this dance, and we've been doing it since 1993. In fact, when the Constitution was put in place, the MPP then tradition had said that no, this was the worst document they had ever seen on the continent, and that we were going to get a new Constitution in the shortest possible time. We are here over 30 years now, and we are still indulging in this game. You've seen my majority leader also talk about the need for a substantial review. Listen, it's not anything different from what they said in 2010. And we are here 12 years later. So I guess I've lost the pretense, right? That comes with, something is going to happen in the Constitution, but it's a document that favors the political class. And that's why they are very much opposed to any idea of talking about the change of the document. Because they understand that any change of it will go substantially to affect the ways in which we have structured government that favors a certain limited class of people. And so they continue to throw in this review there. They give you a sense of buzz and excitement about it. But honestly, let's go back to the budget that was presented this year. Did we see any budget allocated for consultations and any activity towards constitutional amendment? No. It gives me a clearer sense that it's not executive priority at this time. So if a wing of the executive, which is the NCC, comes out and says this statement, they've known this a long time ago. We've been talking about this forever. So what has changed now? Did they present any budget towards educating Ghanaians towards a need for a referendum? The NCC did not. In fact, in preparation for this day, one of the things which the country has been doing is that we've been talking to Ghanaians across the country, whether you have ever even seen the constitutional document and then read it, together with those who have not seen it and those who have not read it. About 86% of our people have never seen nor read the Constitution. That is damaging for a democracy which has committed money and has a whole institution which has branches across districts in the whole country to be educating people on the Constitution. It is part of the gimmick. And I cannot explain it. I cannot find new ways to explain how nothing is going to happen because the system doesn't want it to happen. And if we want something to be changed or reviewed, overhauled, whatever form we say we want it. Because I don't want us to be distracted in, oh, you guys say you want a change, but review is what we need. That's why no action is being taken. For those who believe in a review, go ahead then. Initiate the process and do something about the Constitution process. They're not going to do anything. And that's kind of what I want Ghanaians to be aware of and not fall into this game, really.
Okay, so what do we do to get Ghanaians to want to go along, to want to say, let's do something about the Constitution?
I've looked at every democracy where there has been substantial constitutional reforms and changes. Political class would not change anything that favors them until it ends up in a crisis, a civil war, a coup, or any of that sort of thing. They don't learn and they never read from history. But also in a finite number of those incidents, citizens have to create a sense of urgency. Every institution in this country, from TUC to all of them, were involved in last constitution review process and made substantive programmatic ideas as to what they think needs there to change. In fact, there were when the constitution review finishes, there were 211 constitutional recommendations made. So every breath and every institution in this country had something to say about what they thought was not working with the constitution. Now, our passiveness is not going to create that sense of urgency. Just because we've written a press release is not going to do it. We have to come together and do sit-down actions in the way in which our predecessors did that provoked changes in the constitutional document. You remember the 1948, well, the British called it riots, but in fact, they were protests that happened in this country. It was what precipitated a new constitutional reforms in Ghana and then eventually led us to independence in 2 years' time. Nothing is given unless something is demanded. And that's kind of my view on how we citizens have to be involved in a much more aggressive and urgent way. If not, the political class are content with the document that makes them rich every 4 years, and we will complain about gratia here and there, but nothing would really change about it.
Okay, so you make reference to the statement from the NCC, and you indicate that it's essentially they're just saying something to make us feel good. But you may want to cut this is signed by the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Josephine Nkrumah, and you may want to cut her some slack because she may want to do something. But if the president is taking a stance on it, there's very little that the NCC can do, especially because they would have to, or government would have to, the executive would have to convince that, yes, let's devote some resources to the NCC. And if the resources are not coming to the NCC, there's very little that they can do.
You know, I've stopped grading intentions. I have. But there's something really, really problematic that you have touched on. Listen to what you said. That if arms of this executive want something changed, that the entire country wants it changed. Well, we have a president, and the president doesn't feel like it, so nobody else can do anything. Is this a constitutional democracy you have described? If we have to wait for one person, the president, to decide the fate of the entire nation, and decide whether or not we want substantial constitutional reforms. It sounds to me that you've described a dictatorship. And this is the farce around which the Republic, the 1992 Constitution creates, that we've invested all power in one individual. And I really believe that, oh, well, nothing else what can we do? The president says no. This is exactly the point I'm touching on.
Okay, but Oliver, it's because of the history, where we're coming from. So we had a Rawlings, and we're trying to, and a lot of people have said this, that we're trying to ease out a Rawlings who's supposed to have all sway, hold all the power. And so when we're doing that, we have to do it in a certain way that we don't provoke him to want to say, I'm not going to do it anymore. Right. I'm not going to go down this road anymore. So we have to give him so much, except that, he's gone, he's no more, but then the so-called Democrats who took over, or the people who believed in democracy, have now taken over, and they've tasted it, and they're like, okay, this is good. We like it. And so, yes, it's going to take quite a bit of work to get all that to change.
Yeah, especially if you're expecting that those who have now tasted it and say like, oh, I understand the position in which Rawlings was, and I want to be in that position, even though I profess from life that I was a Democrat, it's not going to change. That's what I'm saying, that for me, I think the real urgency has to come from we, the citizens. And we can, a lot of times we talk about Ghana is not going the way we want it to go, Ghana is this and that. It's really not going to happen. If we expecting the same people who have tasted the forbidden fruit and being like, hey, no, we want more of this. It's not going to, that's kind of how I think our mindset has to shift. And that's the direction in which we are trying to push a lot more citizens into that conversation. And I must say, even as we're having this conversation, that my greatest disappointment has to do with us in the middle class, right? Like persons who are similarly can walk into elite spaces and have conversations and profess a certain sense of intelligence and having read and speak English, and we can hobnob in these communities. When our biggest role as persons who are of a certain, have certain intellectual acuity, our biggest role is to push the political system, to be much more abrasive in this field, because we understand the business of governance and we understand how things are falling in this country. Having left that work, because what we do is that, once we can dig our own borehole, we can provide our own generator, our own electricity, we can kind of segment ourselves from the issues of this country, and then we create our own, cocoon in which we live in. That the business of holding the government to account, we leave to a few individuals in a much more aggressive way. I think we're not going to change in that respect. Yeah. I have had a lot of joy mobilizing with working class people in this country. A lot of them who from day to day are unable to make ends meet. If you look at Face the Country activities, most of the people who are participating in the process are people from the working class. The middle class and those in these elite institutions have not been involved in that process. But I think that's what the biggest failure is, because the conversation must transcend the various strands of our country.
Yeah.
The persons from the working class people who are suffering the biggest brunt of this democracy must feel a sense of support from us in these spaces, and us who are willing to say that no, enough is enough. We are not going to fear the small contracts we get here and there, and we're not always going to be too obsessed about, well, are they going to come for my daily bread? There has to be a point where we give meaning to the words we have recited in our national anthem, that we must resist in some sense, that when we are called upon a duty in the service of the country, we are willing to do that. And that's what I'm hoping to see in the coming year.
All right.
Hopefully the fact that we have a Constitution Day of this thing is perhaps precipitates the death of this Constitution for a better one. That's what I hope.
Okay, so we'll be going on to Facebook in a bit. We'll put the question up on Facebook, and we'll be reading some of the comments. We'll also give you an opportunity for you to join us, those watching, to join us via Zoom. So the Zoom ID will be posted, the link will be posted so that you can join us. But I'd want to go to the statement from the NCCE again. So there's this part where it says the Fourth Republic has fostered peace, democracy, and prosperity. The bit about the prosperity, I'm sure a lot of people will argue whether it actually has, and I'm sure a lot more too will argue whether really we are seeing the kind of democracy we were hoping for in the 1992 Constitution. But it goes on to say the NCCE, however, notes that despite these gains, strengthening our democracy by reforming and improving our constitutional infrastructure should once again be made a national priority. This will help tackle constitutional deficits and aspects of the 1992 Constitution that seemingly breed apathy from the public, disengages the public in major aspects of governance at the grassroots and national levels, further deepens marginalization and promotes excessive powers of the executive and furthers the cause of corruption. So this is the NCCE saying exactly what people feel out there in public. Let's go on to Facebook now and read some of the comments that we have so far on the page. So the question was, what do you make of calls for the review of the 1992 Constitution? And I read this one from Alex. Let's go to the next comment on the post. So we have Kublenu Benzel says, I think the Constitution should reduce the power of the president and make it mandatory for the continuation of the previous government projects. Okay, and Ebenezer Annan says, I have many reasons, but will dwell on just one challenge. Chapter 8, Article 68, Clause 5 of the Constitution of Ghana states that the president's salary, allowance, facilities, pensions, and gratuities shall be exempted from tax. This section of the Constitution is an evidence of the excessive privileges given to the president. For me, one, it doesn't show leadership flowing from the top to down. Where is leadership by example? How is it that the first person of the land doesn't pay tax on his earnings, but expects me to pay? During my national service experience with GRA, we went to the Mokla market to collect tax from the market women. Could you believe that they told us to go and tell the president to pay tax on his salary? Immediately, I was disabled. Have you noticed that the Ghana Revenue Authority never achieves its annual target until the finance minister goes to Parliament of Ghana to seek a review down? Have we analyzed the reason as to why it has to be that all the time? Okay, I'm not sure that the GRA never achieves its targets. It actually does achieve its targets, and yes, so it has happened. If government is not meeting its financial obligation apart from the waste and other such scenarios, we have to look at the lack of leadership leading from the top in the 1992 Constitution. And wait a minute, the 1992 Constitution was just to please a military leader. Why are civilian democratic leaders allowing it to go unchanged? It satisfies their interest too, right? It's called selfishness. Note this, in my opening letter to the President in 2017, in an article published in the Ghanaian media, based on what a market woman told me, indicated to him to pay his tax. But how can that happen? We need to overhaul the 1992 Constitution. Okay, that's quite a lengthy one, but he makes quite a strong point. Now, Menk Dramani says the 1992 Constitution has been nothing but a scam to the good people of Ghana and must be reviewed entirely for the necessary amendment to be made, especially Article 71 office holders. And Liga says, in Uganda, we promulgated our Constitution in 1995, but amended every letter of it without review, as the M7 wishes. Maintain national character and values of the Constitution. If you must review it, ignore the noise from Washington. Okay, I don't think we're listening to any noises or paying heed to any noises from Washington. Idris says, if we review our politics, it would rather be better than the Constitution, because the Constitution is being controlled by politicians. Joshua says, not a review, it must be changed instead. And Nanado says, too much power is given to the president, thereby making his appointees corrupt, because he will always protect them. And Francis says, only Article 71 should be scrapped, not amended from the Constitution. Let me go back to you, let me come back to you, Oliver. So I've just read some of the comments, and you see that there are lots of people who have strong positions as far as the Constitution is concerned, and they're making reference a lot to Article 71 office holders and the largesse that's giving to the political class.
I think one of the reasons why a lot more people talk about Article 71, and it's bad, but it's also because that's one which they get the most education on. I think it's the one that comes up most periodically in the news for it to be commentated upon. So a lot more people are aware of it. But there are a lot more poison pills in the Constitution that go beyond Article 71. And that's why, so those who have, talked about the Constitution for a long time have reached the conclusion that the way forward is that we need something drastic changing. In fact, CDD Ghana has published a paper where they have agreed with the country position that what we need now is a new Constitution. Looking at the mechanisms and the frameworks that exist, you need careful thinking, and you need to rethink the frameworks that we exist in the current Constitution. And that simple patchwork here and there would not suffice. So I think that's a strong position that they have come out eventually to say this. Other civil society organizations have not taken that position, because I think, obviously, to move away from the old and contemplate a different mechanism in itself, it seems as radical in some regard. But let's forget the fact that we had the 1992 Constitution, and we wanted to reconstitute society in a fairer image. How would we go about it? And let's draft a document that reflects that. That's all we are saying, right? Like, those calling for a substantial and holistic review are saying the same thing as we are saying, that we need a change in the constitutional document. Because if we want to just focus on a little touches here and there, it's not going to do the trick. But also for those who have expressed views that, no, bad leadership is the problem and don't focus on the Constitution. One of the things I always say is that, let's take it that we have bad leaders. Is this the best document for bad leaders? Right? It seems to me that if you have bad leaders, you need to have a Constitution that better anticipates them and tries to keep them to account. Because no government, no country is governed by angels, in my estimation. And so if that's the case, then we need to be able to create a constitutional document that targets and limits even the devil. And I don't think we have that in the current form at all.
All right. So we've we've put on your screens the meeting ID and the passcode for those of you who would want to join us via Zoom to share your views with us on this. And we'll be shortly admitting you so that we can take a bit more. But let's go back to Facebook. Let me read a few more of the comments that we have on that post, but generally you see a lot of people who are commenting and talking about Article 71 office holders, and they're thinking that we probably should be scrapping that all together. Now, Kofi Tete Kwe says that is the death warrant of the ordinary Ghanaian. People are suffering because of this booklet. It should be thrown away and rewritten in favor of Ghanaians. Okay, Papa Edri says it needs a complete overhaul. Courage Kwashi says a constitution that protects the political class and impoverishes the average Ghanaian. Scratch my back and I scratch your back constitution. Someone explain to me, how this document, constitution, guarantees a good living for politicians after 4 years of service. It doesn't do same for teachers or nurses who served for over 30 years. It will never be reviewed because the political class interests are secured and assured with this killer document. It's interesting that I'm yet to see one person who is happy with the Constitution. Mohammed Gundana says that useless book must be thrown away because it only protects the thieves, not the people. Those who wrote this book will be in fire. And Ecstasy says, no review, we need to change entirely. Too many things don't make sense in there for our generation. Idris Abdul Karim, Ghana, we don't follow our constitution. We rather follow our politicians. What they say is what is going to happen. Look at recently what is happening. Emmanuel says, the laws in our constitution are the same everywhere. The framers of the constitution did very well. The only problem we have is not enforcing our laws. We're very quick in implementing laws, but very lazy in enforcing it. The existing laws should be enforced to bite whoever falls victim. And then Mesu Christian says, this constitution has outlived its usefulness. It was created to benefit a certain group of people. So interesting. So Oliver, more comments. I read some more comments, and virtually everybody is saying that they're not happy with the constitution. This should give an indication to the political class that, look, it's about time something happened. At what point do we get this conversation? We bring this conversation, make it center stage so that the politicians have no choice but to make it a part of the political message before the 2024 election.
You know, in the 2020, going into the 2008 elections, we had reached that level. We had talked about it enough that every political party had it in their manifesto that they were going to do something about it. In fact, it came up in the IEA debate where the current president at the time made grandiose promises about what he was going to do in terms of putting in place a constitution review commission. The idea came from him, not even Mills. And when Mills won, he went ahead and created the framework we had that resulted in the stillbirth. Maybe I have my generation as a millennial and perhaps the Gen Z generation have reached a point where our patience with talk and dance and hoping that these same political class are the ones that put it on their agenda and do something about it. Maybe it's run thing. But I think the processes towards creating the sense of urgency, and I say this particularly because in the first instance, it was like, and the NGOs and some of the national NGOs will hold their own seminar and all those events in a way that is really disconnected from the people on the grounds and in the grassroots. I think that we have to bring everybody on board and create, perhaps this year, a march for democracy, where we draw 200,000 people onto the streets. Kumi Prekum brought 100,000 people onto the streets in Accra. Then we bring 200,000 people across the country onto the streets of Accra and demand for new constitution. I think that's the way to change it, in my honest opinion. If it doesn't, we occupy the space for 3 months. Trust me, I've seen governments even fall when citizens have just done nothing but stand up and demand for it by congregating. So I really believe in the power of congregation, and I think that is the surest way for us to push the political class to do something that they deeply hate and detest.
Yeah, but the congregation, isn't that the problem? Because Ghanaians find it hard to step out onto the streets when such calls are made and congregate and make a statement with their presence. We have a few people who have joined via Zoom right now. Let's take the very first person and hear what they have to say about the 1992 Constitution. So who do we have? Let's see who's on. First of all, we have Michael Aqua. Hello, Michael. So what do you make of calls for the Constitution to be reviewed or overhauled? Where do you stand, Michael?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, my take on this is that my senior man was saying that we have bad leaders and so on and so forth is bad leaders. But for me, I think it's bad leaders because what do we see? the only arm of government that should protect that constitution is the judiciary. Do they have that integrity? There are so many things have gone on in this country, in our court system, that we see that to be flawed, where the judges are not speaking the truth. So even if you have the constitution and the judges who are supposed to uphold this constitution are doing the right thing, we think we can go for it. So for me, it is not only a subject on the overhaul or the change of the constitution, but we should also have, a strong institution like the judiciary to protect our constitution. By so doing, because there have been so many frauds where our leaders have not been held accountable. So I think it is the failure of the judiciary. That is why we are having all this, lapses in our constitution. That is my take.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. So let's go to the next person that we have joining us via Zoom and hear what they. All right, so we'll take the man in the yellow shirt. I can't see your name. So what's your take? Hello? You have to unmute so we can hear you. The man in yellow. All right, if we're having challenges, we probably want to move to the next person. Okay. Agamber Al-Hassan, can you hear us? Let's hear you.
Yes, good morning, Israel.
Yes, good morning.
And then good morning to my colleagues on the line. Please, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I think my take on the issue of whether we should overhaul the Constitution or review it. I remember the Atamo's administration, he commissioned a committee to conduct a research on the constitutional review issue, which was headed by Prof. Atubuga.
Yeah.
And they made very important recommendations that has to do with a lot of issues. But particularly my issue has to do with the issue of the Article 71 office holders.
All right.
They are among our problems in this country. They take a lot of remunerations, a lot of money out of our coffers to the disadvantage of the masses. So for me, I think if the Constitution is overhauled so that those powers can be reduced. Also, the power of the president is so much that he has every power to appoint everybody, head of institutions, which has become too much of politics that is destroying our country.
All right.
So I think that if the power of the president is also reduced to a certain level, it will help us. It will bring back the integrity that we need to build in our institution as a country.
All right.
Thank
you too. Let's take one final person, and then I'll come to Oliver for his wrap-up comments. So let's go to Haruna. Haruna, on mute, and then we can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, please, I'm just speaking from Bole.
All right.
In the Savannah region.
All right.
I'd like to give my small take on the whole issue.
So
I think that the Constitution gives the president some kind of a paternalistic justice. Because at the medical field, we have something we call paternalistic justice, where the medical doctor, after you have signed the consent form, can change and do other procedures. So this Constitution is giving the president this upper hand, such that even when they have manifestos that they've already written and promised the people that they are going to carry out these things and that, they turn out not to do, and nobody can hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And they do other things that are highly unacceptable. And the law allows them. The law allows them because it is in the Constitution. So you realize that the Constitution is full of flaws. So for me, on my take, I think that the Constitution should be changed. Instead of overhauling it and doing all this, it's just change the Constitution, because considering the era it was written and the people who are in position, these are errors we do not support. Errors we think that there are shameful errors in the history of Ghana. So if the constitution has been written in such errors, under such leaderships, I think what we need to do is to change the whole constitution and give it a new one. Let's give the country a new constitution where we have millennium people sitting down to write a millennium constitution to suit us. Thank you very much.
Now, before you go, I'd want to ask you this, because so Oliver brought it up. He says that what we need will be a congregation of a mass of Ghanaians. Will you be prepared to come out there if you're invited to such an event?
Most definitely, it will be my pleasure to come out to contribute my part, because the constitution as this is going to cover all the past, everything that runs in the country. So if you are going to write a constitution, then we are going to consider all the various sectors within the country. So if you are going to write a constitution and there's going to be articles on health, then you have the health people coming out trying to make their own inputs.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. And to the other two who are on the line, unfortunately, we can't take you because we're just about running out of time. But let me go to Oliver. So, Oliver, we're speaking to the people. The people we're speaking to clearly have also indicated that clearly they would want to see a change in the constitution. So it appears there's this groundswell and there's an appeal. The appeal is that people would want to see the constitution change. All right, apparently we don't have Oliver, but yes, it's been good having you for this conversation. I'm sure we would probably need a lot more time to go into it, but it's Constitution Day, and maybe we can spend some time, go on social media and post about it with the hashtag Constitution Day and speak your mind. Hopefully, the people in power may want to do something about it. But that's it for the AM show for today on Constitution Day. I'm Israelite. Thank you very much for watching, and I want to thank Oliver Bakavomo for joining us for the conversation and everybody else who joined us for the conversation. Have a wonderful day.